this whole thing. And bringing back memories I have forgotten about the school. But the school, I don't know what happened when we moved away, but I guess some of the others' mother took over the security for
when
the
you
school.
went out to Wantagh.
Yeah, we moved to Wantagh.
So did you get involved in the high school there?
When I moved to Wantagh, I didn't get involved with anything because I had to be home for my husband's business. I was taking, because I had deliveries made and I had telephone calls.
I remember when the deliveries would come, they'd go into the garage.
Yeah, the big super trucks used to come.
The garage was so
loaded
filled
with merchandise.
pens.
Well, that's what he used to deliver. But I became active with the
Oh my
sisterhood.
gosh, it is raining.
Yeah.
See that?
Oh yeah, I see. It's pouring, not raining.
Yeah.
Well, they predict the showers. I became active in the sisterhood from the temple, and I became active in Women's American Art, which is an organization raised money to help students in Israel. And we raised a lot of money. We used to have all different. One of the things that I did with another woman to raise money, we'd go to there was a movie house close by. And we asked them for one night if we can sell tickets for people coming in, if they would give us a percentile. And we sold tickets. We found out what the picture was in advance. And we made sure it was a picture that a lot of people wanted to see. So we sold tickets. And we had the movie that night, and the women, we were the usherettes. And I don't remember how much money we made, but the movie theater manager decided to agree with us. And we also used to have a mahjong party where ironically you needed a lot of tables for the mahjong. So one of the jewelry stores had a big entrance section, so he allowed us to put bridge tables up in his store one night. And we had flyers going around the neighborhood that there was a mahjong tournament in this jewelry store. And people would pay to come in, and we raised money for Women's American Art.
Wow.
Yeah, and we did a lot of, and I'm just trying to think of what other stores volunteered their areas that we could use, sections that we were able to use. And we used them, and we used to have mahjong tournaments where whoever won, we would give a prize. And I'm just thinking what else I belong to. Women's American Art, the Temple, Sisterhood. I wasn't active with the Parents Association in the schools because they had a lot of young people there that were there. I was much older than the average family that bought homes around me. A lot of them their husbands had just come back from the service and they had no children. They were having families. So, and I was having my third child.
Right.
So.
That was in 65.
Bonnie was
born
born
in 65.
I'm trying to think of, she was just 50. Yeah.
Tell us about Grandpa going to temple. Every Friday he would go to shul.
Well, Grandpa, he couldn't be active in athletics, which he was very good at, because he played basketball, he played stickball. In fact, when I lived in Brooklyn, the kids on the street used to play children from other streets. They had enough children to play one another baseball. That was stickball in those days. And Daddy used to come to see me all the time when we were keeping company. So the kids on the street asked him to play with them. Well, he hit the ball 2 sewers long, and when they saw that, they made him a permanent player. And they played on other streets. And before long, my street was the winning street for months in the area. He was very athletic. And he used to play basketball with his brothers. There were 5 boys. They had their own team, and they played with other kids in their school district when they were growing up. And then when he was older, when I was still seeing him as a young man, he used to play for 2 temples on Saturday night when he wasn't a member of those temples, but they found out that he was a good player, so they encouraged him to play for that temple team, and that's where he played. But then when he couldn't play ball anymore, he couldn't do anything active because of his condition, he became active in the temple. And in the morning when they had a minyan, he would call up people the night before, so you have to have 10 men for a minyan. And the temple was new and all the area was new, so he would call up some of the members, he would pick them up, those who didn't have cars, and take them to the temple so they'd have 10 men for a minyan. And then he would take them to the train station so they could go into their jobs. But he became involved with the temple so much that he became observant, that he used to go to services Saturday morning, Friday night. He would make minyans for Sunday morning. And on his way to the temple, we had a appetizing and dairy store near our area, and he would order bagels and lox and cream cheese, and on the way to the temple he would pick it up so the men would have breakfast Sunday morning at the temple. And then also he did a lot of things for the temple to raise money for the temple. They'd have a clothing drive, whatever they did that he was able to do physically, he did for the temple. And then the kids went to Hebrew school, he would be involved with the programs, with the teachers. And when your father went to Hebrew school, the only way he could get there was to walk. It was quite a distance from our house. So one of his Hebrew teachers used to be a teacher in Brooklyn and used to come out to Long Island to teach Hebrew. So by the time he got through with school, he used to come to my house. I would give him something, a cup of tea and something to eat, and then he would take your father to Hebrew school, so he wouldn't have to walk in the bad weather, and then Grandpa would pick Elliot up to bring him home. And then before your father went for a Hebrew test, he would ask me to study the vocabulary with him. I never took Hebrew. Growing up, Jewish women had nothing to do with the religion. In fact, during the services, we sat separately from the men. We sat upstairs or on the side, hidden. That's how the Orthodox Jews are still doing that. Women are not part of the religious activity. So, I'm just saying, I'm just thinking back. I could forget about all that growing up. But when we moved to Wantagh, we belonged to a conservative shul where women and men sat together, which I think everybody should pray together. And
tell us about the shul.
yeah, the temple was a small temple when we moved there. But as we grew, the area became more filled up with Jewish families, and we needed a larger shul. So Daddy became involved with increasing the size of the shul. And they had a social hall now, which they didn't have before, and the seating arrangements were made. And the rabbi had his own little room, which was very nice, and they had a parking lot in case people didn't want to drive on the Sabbath. They used to leave their cars Friday, and they would walk to shul on the Sabbath. Those that were Orthodox, well, I mean, those that were more, religious about the activity. And the temple, the kids grew up. Bonnie and Elliot grew up in the temple. Patty already was out of the house. She was married. And Elliot was bar mitzvah there. And Bonnie was bas mitzvah there.
I think I went once to a
Friday night service. Yeah. See, that I don't remember.
Yeah.
Because holidays he used to come to visit. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, whenever the holidays were, Passover. He used to come. Daddy they knew his seat in the shul. He sat. And a good thing about him in the shul, a lot of people would come in and they didn't know anybody. And when someone would come into the shul, he would make sure that they were seating. He would sit there with people that were friendly enough to make friends with these new families, so they weren't sitting alone. And every time they used to call Daddy, there was a special Jewish name that he was I don't remember the name, but whoever came in, he was always there helping people sit down, and he would help the rabbi. And the rabbi, I remember when he wasn't well, the rabbi used to come to the house all the time to see him, how he was doing.
Tell us about my dad when he was in high school.